This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. Remember when your community could turn to a local TV station or newspaper for the latest updates and affordable ads? Those days may be fading, but the need for local connection remains. That's why we created Bringing Local Back, a game-changing platform that restores local visibility and advertising power to your community. It's more than just tech. It's about driving engagement and creating new revenue for your chamber. Ready to see the future? Visit bringinglocalback.com to schedule your demo today. This is the future of local commerce. Our guest for this episode is Ann Hutchinson. Ann became president and CEO of the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce on January 1st, 2021. She started with the chamber in 2003 as a policy committee coordinator and was promoted to executive vice president in 2005 before moving into the CEO role and directly managed the communications and events departments, assisted in the day-to-day operations of the chamber and managed issues and political advocacy, as well as the chamber's Leadership Fort Collins and Leadership Northern Colorado programs, and is responsible for the future vision and strategic direction of the organization while maintaining the staff, team, and the day-to-day operations of the Fort Collins Area Chamber. She's been a key community leader in advancing the business-friendly policy agenda while building community through business. And I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you an opportunity to say hello to all the chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Yeah, well, thanks, Brandon. I'm thrilled to be a part of the podcast today, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully sharing some insights that are of value to my colleagues across the country. As far as something interesting about myself, I don't know that this is interesting, but I am a true blue or true green CSU Ram fan. So I graduated from University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, which is about an hour away from Fort Collins. But my father and my sister have multiple degrees from Colorado State, and they gave me the opportunity to be a fan of Colorado State, and so I'm fully invested. Football, basketball, volleyball, you name the sport that has a clock and a score, and you'll most likely see myself and my sister there cheering the Rams on. I'm wearing green today because we do Fan Friday here in Fort Collins, where we get our green on Friday. So you will regularly see me sporting the green and the gold in support of that important community partner, but also it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always nice to get those proxy invitations to be a fan, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, you wear it well, so that's fun. Well, tell us a little bit more about the Fort Collins Area Chamber, just to kind of set the stage for our discussion today, so we know where you're coming from in this conversation. To tell us about the size, staff, budget, scope of work, those things that you guys are involved with, to kind of prep us for this conversation.
Yeah. So Fort Collins is located in Colorado. We're about an hour north of Denver. And as already noted, Colorado State is our single largest employer in Fort Collins. They're a key primary employer in that we bring in about 10,000 new students every year onto campus. So we have a campus of about 40,000 students, and we learn them up. We take that raw material, we learn them up, and then we send them back out into the world to do really great things. And as a sizable employer, but also that primary employer, bringing those new dollars into the community, incredibly important to Fort Collins. But we're not a single industry town. We also then have a strong technology presence here in our economy. We're well known for our retail sector. At one point, we had the justification that we had more restaurants per capita than anywhere else in the United States. So a beautiful cross-section community that the economy is driven by a lot of really interesting and great companies and organizations. As far as the chamber goes, we are the Fort Collins area chamber, and that's very intentional that we not only support concepts and visions and ideas for Fort Collins, but we really do address issues on a regional basis. So it's a connection between Larimer County, which is where Fort Collins is, and Weld County, which has Greeley as its county seat. That two-county area represents almost 700,000 people, and we really are a regional economy with people living, working, and playing throughout that two-county area. As a result, we then end up being one of the largest chambers in the two-county area. We have about 1,200 members. We then staff the work that those 1,200 members request with about 14 people that represent 11 and a half FTE. We've tested out a lot of concepts that we funded through grant funding that then we move those folks off of contract basis onto our staff. So you'll see us continuing to grow a little bit, although the last several years we've really leaned into that concept of not FTE, but contracts in order to get the work done. Last little note would be we function under a 5-year strategic plan that we call Northern Colorado Prospers. And you and I will talk a little bit more about how we created Northern Colorado Prospers and what it does for us. But it sets the stage for the work of the chamber to be largely around 4 key goals. We're staying highly focused on the economy and how the economy works and how we can influence the economy here in the two-county area. We spend a lot of time working on our talent ecosystem and making sure that the ecosystem is easy for our people to get into, but also then creating the talent and the workforce that our employers need moving forward. We spend a lot of time talking about transportation in a two-county area and really making sure that there's a system that allows people to get throughout the two-county area. And then our 4th goal is around a business-friendly environment, really making changes locally at the county level and at the state level to make sure that business has an opportunity to thrive throughout Northern Colorado.
That's great. Yeah, that gives us a really good snapshot of what you guys are involved with. So, do you have any of the tourism or economic development, or are you solely chamber, or what's that scope look like?
We are solely chamber. So here in Fort Collins, we have a separate organization that manages our visit profile. We have a separate organization that manages our downtown Fort Collins promotions. We have a separate organization that does any of the pageants and parties. So yes, our full-time job is membership connections and advocacy.
Awesome. Now that helps set the stage for sure. And I'm curious more about the contract workers and exploring that through grants and I think there's a lot of opportunity there for other chambers to be able to really assess the needs, see, do we need a full-time person for this? Is it a short-term commitment that could be a contract thing or if it may be a long term. I've heard of accounting, being contracted out and not necessarily having a staff person for that. So you guys are doing some innovative things, it sounds like.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it really, the contract design has really allowed us to test out concepts and test out concepts using other people's money, which is kind of fantastic. But it also then gives us as an organization that opportunity to buy only the services that we need for that moment in time without then having that long time commitment, especially if a concept doesn't work, but that long time commitment of staff time, benefits, office space, technology. I mean, you name all of the parts and pieces. And so using that contract model really has given us the opportunity to test ideas, make sure that they work, and then we can adopt those into our organization if they make sense.
Yeah. So I don't think you mentioned what your budget is, the operating budget there at the chamber, because I think that'll be a key thing as we get into our topic for today.
Yeah, so we function with approximately $2 million a year. Um, Half of that budget comes directly from membership dues and community events or membership events that we run. The other half of that budget then is a funding stream that very specifically drives our major priority work for the organization. So, and again, we'll talk deeper about this, but we ran a campaign that asked business to make a 5-year investment with us, and that generated about $4 million for use over 5 years. So that's where that other $1 million comes from, is that very specific campaign that then drives and funds this very specific strategic work.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. Yes, and as you alluded to, we're going to be focusing our conversation today around capital campaigns and being able to use those to raise the funds for these important, key work that chambers are involved with. So I'm excited to dive in deeper on that topic, learn more about how you guys are doing things there at the Fort Collins Area Chamber as soon as we get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped the Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Chamber leaders, I know each of you works daily to boost your local economy and take your Chamber of Commerce to the next level. But let's face it, it takes funding, and lots of it. You need to know Resource Development Group. For 3 decades, they have been the premier economic development fundraising consulting firm dedicated to helping chambers of commerce and economic development organizations like yours thrive across the United States. Their expert team specializes in crafting customized fundraising strategies that drive tangible results so you'll be able to fully implement your community advancement and economic development strategies. Imagine having a partner who strives to understand your community's unique needs, brings national best practices to bear, and has the proven experience to secure millions of dollars in funding. Resource Development Group has successfully guided countless chambers of commerce in creating vibrant, sustainable economies. With their comprehensive suite of services, from campaign planning and execution to investor engagement management to best practice studies, RDG takes the guesswork out of fundraising. You'll receive personalized support and innovative solutions that make a real impact. Don't just take my word for it. Chambers of Commerce and EDO executives nationwide have praised RDG for their dedication, professionalism, and impressive track record of raising over $2 billion for their clients. Ready to see what Resource Development Group can do for your chamber? Visit them at rdgfundraising.com to learn more. Elevate your community, strengthen your chamber, and unlock new possibilities with Resource Development Group by your side. They build organizations that build communities. All right, Ann, we are back. As we mentioned before the break, today we're going to be talking about capital campaigns. And you had mentioned how that makes up about half of your operating budget there at the Fort Collins Area Chamber. And you had mentioned that you go about asking people to commit to support this strategic strategy for a 5-year plan. Tell us more about the structure, how this is done. Just unpack it for us.
You bet. So it's important to note that I inherited an amazing legacy here at the Fort Collins Area Chamber. So our former CEO, David May, who led this organization for 20 years, really did a fantastic job in helping our business community and especially our leadership think about the role of the chamber and placing the chamber into a space where we were taking on the biggest of regional issues. We were proving out that we could be a trusted resource, that we could actually move the dial on policy and create the future that we really want here in Northern Colorado. At the same time, he identified that we were doing that in 1-year chunks, and it was really challenging to start to move that flywheel relative to these really massive system changing issues. If you spend half a year fundraising and then you only end up with 6 months in order to work on the issue itself, and then you go right back into fundraising again. So David led our board through an analysis to really identify that this capital campaign concept could work for things other than buildings. And so we launched in 2016 a fundraising effort where, number one, we worked with the business community to identify the biggest issues that the business community wanted to see the chamber work on. We then packaged those with 4 major goals and took it out into the market and said, business community, are you willing to make a 5-year commitment in order for us to do this work? And that first campaign, we were able to raise $3.8 million for use over a 5-year window. And it was transformational for our organization. It really got us out of that 1-year cycle, but also laid down a marker to say our organization, while yes, we are about people connections, is really about taking on the biggest issues of our region and delivering on the promise of making change with those issues. So under David's leadership, we ran with Northern Colorado Prospers 1.0, had some great success as David then prepared to retire in 2020. We were coming up onto the last year of that 5-year campaign. We went back out into the market and said, hey, community, we've been doing this work. Here's what we've been able to do. We think we're still the right organization to continue this work. Would you be willing to fund us again? That feasibility study came back and said, absolutely. We could show very specific improvements that we had made to our business environment, and business was very willing to say, yes, let's give it another round. So my first year in seat in 2021 was to take that new product out into the market and spent 2021 fundraising while wrapping up the first campaign as far as moving the dial. And again, very successful, about $4 million that was committed to us for then the next 5 years of programming. So we've been under Northern Colorado Prospers 2.0 for 3 years, 4 years, with 22, 23, and 24 being the first 3 years of that campaign. We'll be taking on in next year, 2025, an analysis of, is this the right tool moving forward? Do we run another campaign or not? And what that might look like for fundraising in 2026. So it's been transformational for us.
Yeah. I really like the idea of not needing to spend half the year on fundraising and only have 6 months to do the actual work, right?
Yes.
So be able to do it once and kind of have it set for a 5-year time frame and be able to really roll your sleeves up and get some things done.
Yes.
So you've been there at the chamber for, well before this,
Yes.
this is put into place. How have you seen the change? I know you said you guys will be doing an analysis to see if it's worth going forward, but how have you seen the before versus after with using this kind of strategy?
Yeah. I'd love to use the example that really showcases this idea of the flywheel turning and the impact having lasting change in your community. So here in Northern Colorado, Fort Collins is connected to Denver, our city center, by an interstate. It's called I-25, and it's an interstate that was put down on the ground in 1969 and had really very little improvement to it since. We were starting to experience as a community that our commute to Denver, whether it was to head to an international airport or to interact with state government or just to do business, was going from a 45-minute commute up to closer to an hour and a half, with projections that commute could expand to 3 hours in a very short amount of time. So capacity on that roadway was a growing concern. Our transportation division said, "Don't you worry about that, Northern Colorado. We have you slated to do some pretty major improvements to that roadway, adding an extra lane, and we'll be getting that done in 2075."
Awesome. Can't wait.
Right. This is 2015 when we're having this conversation. Business leaders around the room had some very choice words to say and said, "You know what? We appreciate that, but we're going to knock about half a century off of that number. And we are committed as a business community and as a government community to find the funding in order to improve that roadway and have all of those dollars secured, if not the construction completed, by 2025. So we're in 2015, 2020, make the big declaration. We are going to fix North I-25 by 2025. Because of Northern Colorado Prospers and that fundraising, that campaign style fundraising, we knew we had money for the next 5 years to be able to very specifically create a lobbying plan, to build relationships, to dive in full time to this conversation to make a change. And I'm happy to report that we're coming up on January 1 of 2025, and we have been able to secure $1.2 billion for the improvement of that roadway. We actually have, of the 5 segments that we were working to improve, 4 of them have been completed, and actually we have concrete on the ground with an additional lane that is offering free-flowing traffic. We have then the final segment is now fully funded and is under construction now. So because of the funding that we had in place, we were able to go on a absolutely proactive pathway in order to make change and then turn around and deliver to our business community exactly what we promised. So very real example, and made all the difference.
That is awesome. That's quite the example.
And if only every issue was that easy, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have a problem, you know exactly what the answer is, right? Problem is, road doesn't work. I need $1.2 billion. We find $1.2 billion and we fix it. Some of these other challenges are sadly not as easily addressed, and you can't check the box quite as quickly, but it is a very real example for us.
You had mentioned earlier that there's pillars to this work, to this plan that you guys have going forward, the Northern Colorado Prospers. Can you talk to us about what those pillars are and the thinking that went behind creating those pillars?
Absolutely. So our 4 pillars are, number 1, reigniting the economy. That pillar was created as we were coming out of COVID. And so reignite was a concept that we were using relative to how do we bounce back from COVID. I would say with that goal, we've actually evolved it into not only recovery, which we have been able to do since COVID, but also now how do we accelerate our economy? How do we grow our economy in Northern Colorado? So that's our first goal, or our first pillar, is around the economy. Our second goal is around our talent ecosystem, and how do we continue to attract, grow, and retain the right talent for Northern Colorado? And what are the systems that we need to affect in order to make it, again, easy for people to come into our workforce, stay in our workforce, and grow in our workforce? Our third pillar is around transportation. That's where that I-25 example comes from. We were really keenly focused at the beginning of this campaign spend window on I-25. Now that we've been able to check those boxes, we're now altering our vision to really be about regional roadways. How do we connect to that spine of I-25 to go east and west across the two-county area? And then the fourth pillar or fourth goal is around a business-friendly environment. What are the barriers? What are the regulations? What are the artificial limiters that we've created here in Northern Colorado that make us less business friendly? How do we eliminate those in order to inspire and encourage the opportunity for business to have success here? So four very broad areas, gives us a lot of space to be impactful, but also fully driven by our business community saying these are our biggest pain points that we believe the chamber can be impactful around.
Yeah. Um, I knew you guys would get the feedback, right? You wouldn't just, pull topics out of a hat and say, this is where we're going to put our attention and not have any data to support that. So that's fantastic. So when it comes to the capital campaign, do you put it on yourself? Do you make all the contacts? Do you bring in a consultant? How do you guys approach it?
Yeah. So for Northern Colorado Prospers 1.0, we did a full RFP with the fundraising community and interviewed consultants from across the country. We created a fantastic relationship with Sean McCula with Power 10. They're in Atlanta, Georgia. And Sean is just this really dynamic leader that absolutely takes off his hat of I live in Atlanta and becomes immersed in our community to help us really understand what's happening boots on the ground. He ran a feasibility study for us where we took out the basic concepts, and he then was that third party to give our business community a really confidential but easy path to share their feedback. Once we completed the feasibility study with Sean, we then did enter into a contract where he, working with our staff, managed that actual fundraising campaign for the first Northern Colorado Prospers. We then went back with Sean a second time to do another feasibility study, and then they were a key partner with me as I was doing the fundraising in 2021. And that outside consultant was incredibly powerful. I think as chamber folks, we have a tendency of thinking we can bootstrap everything. But I will say that investment with Power 10 and with Sean paid for itself in so many ways. They pushed us hard to be able to articulate what we were offering to the community. They also pushed us hard to be able to tell the story once we did start the work. And then again, that anonymous, almost anonymous third party pathway for our investors to really provide strong, raw insider feedback that, again, we may or may not get as a chamber with our community. So big proponent of sometimes you have to spend money in order to make money in order to get the work done.
Yeah. So when it comes to making the asks for people to commit to funding this, is that you that's actually making the asks? You're sitting down and making those calls and setting those meetings?
Exactly right. Power 10 came in and they were in some ways our back office. So they were
coached you up, and
they would coach us up. They helped us with the messaging and the narrative. They would set up the meetings so they were going through the brain damage of getting on two different schedules and how does it work, and is it in person, is it online? But then it was myself as CEO doing the pitch as well as the ask. And then the great news was then Power 10 was in some ways that follow-up closer. So I would make the ask. In some cases, it was an ask of $50,000 a year from a company for 5 years. And then Power 10 would do the follow-up to make sure if we got a warm or a hot yes, they then did all the follow-up to finalize, have the paperwork done, and then we process the rest of that internally.
Yeah. So how long would you say the capital campaign lasts, like the actual work of, from start to finish, from doing the research and, surveys and everything to you're done and what the dollar amount has been committed for the next 5 years?
So it's probably an 18-month process. And as I noted, we're highly focused in next year 4 of the current campaign we're in doing analysis from start to finish, and then fundraising in 25. And we're planning 18 months for that process. So we'll be starting as soon as January, talking with our board about other ways that we could create the same kind of funding streams, deciding if any other pathways make sense or if we need to stay on this campaign path, then going out into the field with a feasibility study in Q2 of next year, then making a decision in Q3 on where we head. Q4 then is the narrative and the finalizing of goals. And then January 1 of 26, crazy to say out loud,
Right.
January 1 of 26, then I would be heading into the field to start those one-on-one conversations with a goal of being able to wrap up the campaign within about 6 months.
Okay. Very good. That definitely helps. So you've done it, you've been in it through 1.0 and 2.0 now, and it looks like the amount that was committed it increased some. So
Yes.
hopefully that speaks well to it being received well by those who have committed to fund this.
Yes.
And hopefully that'll continue. I know you need to be sensitive, and that's why you're going to do this assessment to make sure you're not wearing people out. But it seems to work well. If they can see the results of the work you're doing, they'll continue to fund it.
Absolutely. I will say, I think one of the opportunities that's in front of us, one is with the campaign, we were talking to regional business leaders and having people that probably wouldn't necessarily write a check for membership, write a check 4 times the size of membership because they were investing directly in specific work. So that was a tremendous change of opportunity for us as a chamber. We weren't going to the same well all the time. Now, certainly key investors in our organization that have been longtime sizable membership investors also invested in NCP, but the new audience, the new employer that we had the opportunity to talk to was just tremendous. I do think as we start to look at NCP 3.0, we not only want to continue to expand that unusual investor in the chamber, I'm also curious about how do we broaden this opportunity for investment to our basic membership participants. What are those pathways for even our smallest of investors on the chamber side of the house to also then invest in Northern Colorado Prospers? So for us, it's looking at both ends of that spectrum, the top and the bottom.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I can feel the excitement of it too. I mean, it definitely funds important work, and the money needs to come from somewhere. And you guys are lucky enough to have some strong partners there in your chamber to help fund this. As we start to wrap things up, I'd like to ask for the chamber listening who's trying to take their organization up to the next level, what kind of tips or action item might you share with them to try to accomplish that goal?
Yeah. And I know a lot of us have been using this line ever since COVID, but I think it's very true in that chambers need and should be at the forefront of the biggest issues that are impacting a community. We have the skill set, we have the relationships, we have the foundational presence in a community to be able to take on the very biggest challenges for us in each of our communities. I would suggest that pre-COVID, we were maybe hesitant as an industry and as chamber leaders to really dive in full on being that resource. COVID forced many of our organizations to be in a space that was new and unexpected, but proved out that we can be not just a voice for business, but we can be a change agent. And I really encourage my colleagues across the country to embrace that. Yes, membership connections are important. Yes, community parades and community celebrations are important. But if you really want to be a change agent, there is an opportunity and you can do it. And you'd be surprised how much the business community is willing to fund that work.
Yeah. Proof and point right there. Well, as we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
Yeah, I think in this time and space where we have a lot of conflict in communities, we've just come off an election season that was probably as divided as we've ever seen since we became a country, of people having very, very different views of the world. The chamber can be this fascinating, exciting, vibrant home base for multitudes of perspectives to come together to then identify what is very best for the future of your community. And realizing that we've built these connections, that we're interacting with business, and that can remain this incredible home base for so many community decisions. That gets me excited and showcases, I think, the role that chambers can absolutely play across the country in creating our next future.
Yeah, I love that. I love that response. Well, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information. If there's anyone out there who wants to reach out and connect and learn more about how you guys have gone about your capital campaign, results, things that maybe we didn't touch on, what would be the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, certainly my email is probably the very best pathway. I'll promote that our website has tons of information, just as every chamber across the country does. So our website is fortcollinschamber.com, and Fort is spelled out. So FortCollinsChambr.com is our website. And then my email, please take full advantage of that. And my email is hutchison@fcchamber.org.
That's perfect. And we'll get it in our show notes too, so people don't have to try to catch all the spelling. We'll get it in there and clickable and everything. So, but Ann, this has been great having you on Chamber Chat Podcast. Appreciate you sharing your experiences and impact from your capital campaigns and really driving the work forward there in the Fort Collins area. Thank you for being with us and sharing these insights with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandon, for the invite. And again, I hope it's of value to my colleagues across the country.
If you are a chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.